what's up, you guys? This is Chris Calicut for Knockdown Sports Radio. Thanks for joining me today, everybody. Again, my name's Chris. Thanks for hanging out with me. Lots of stuff to cover today. Today being August 31st, 2016. My largest and biggest and most sincere apologies to everybody out there for not getting as much content out here as I wanted to originally. Life is a very, very busy thing at times, and I appreciate y'all sticking with us here at Knockdown Sports Radio. Just wanted to remind you quickly how to follow us on social media. Our main medium of communication, obviously, is the Twitter, and that is at knockdown_radio. Knockdown_radio. And yes, I did the underscore sign with my hand because I'm used to doing that with my good partner in crime, Mr. Cody Teague. And you'll see him on here from time to time, co-hosting with me. And also want to remind you, Facebook, Knockdown Sports Radio, and our brand new website, knockdownsportsradio.com. You'll find all of our past episodes, articles, Amazon links, which we'll talk about later. A lot of stuff that you can find there on knockdownsportsradio.com. Also want to send out a quick shout out to our good friends, another local podcast here in the Randolph County, North Carolina area, the Randolph County Rewind. Good buddies Jan Patterson and Michael Jernigan putting out some local news for the Randolph County athletes, especially high school and abroad. Doing really good things, fun stuff. They get interviews with local coaches, things like that. Listen to their first couple of episodes, and they're doing a really good job, and I appreciate them returning the favor, giving us a little shout out as well. Hope to have those guys on the show at some point soon. You can find them on Facebook at the Randolph County Rewind as well, and we hope you will check them out as well as the Knockdown Sports Radio page. All right, to the news at hand. San Francisco 49ers quarterback, not even starting quarterback, just quarterback, Colin Kaepernick. I debated on how I wanted to approach this subject. If you have not heard, then you're probably not looking at a television or radio of the sports variety whatsoever. But I'll recap just a little bit. Colin Kaepernick, in last week's preseason game, refused to stand for the national anthem. He says he is not going to stand for a cause or a country that oppresses minorities and black people. And that, in his defense, this is not a stand that he is being oppressed, but he wants to stand for the less vocal minority in the inner cities, in the more rural areas where opportunities may not abound quite as much. And any person with a heart or a mind knows that in those places, in the inner cities, the rural areas, even in major cities, and just regular everyday life, sometimes minorities don't get a fair shake when it comes to, jobs, food, wages, anything that you can think of. And I'm breaking my own rules here. And me and Cody made a pact a long time ago not to really get political. And as you hear my cat Lily run across the house, we made a pact not to get political on our sports radio shows here. But when a situation like this presents itself, I feel like I have to touch on it just a little bit. But those are the reasons that Colin Kaepernick says he did not stand for the national anthem and will continue to not stand for the national anthem until he says these problems are resolved. I hope he can find a good easy chair or recliner, because he's not going to ever stand up if he thinks these problems are going to be resolved during his NFL career, which may be cut shorter than regularly anticipated due to his lack of skill here and lately. Stats not looking so good the past couple seasons. Relegated to backup quarterback right now. And for all intents and purposes, did this move, I think, not as much, or excuse me, just as much to help his cause as an activist, as much as he is helping his cause as a football player, or at least that was his original intent. He was starting to lose some buzz. I mean, if you just look at the guy physically, he's lost probably 30 pounds of muscle. When he first came into the league from Nevada, he was kind of lean. He beefed up, became a big NFL athletic quarterback, big arm even though it wasn't the most accurate, and very mobile. Now, he just looks like a thinner, less athletic version of himself. Now, I don't know why. Did he stop going to the weight room? Did he stop caring as much about the sport when his playing time started diminishing? Who knows? But I think he went into business for himself just as much as he did for the people he's reaching out for. Let's just look at a little bit of background. Colin Kaepernick is biracial. His mother is white. His birth mother is white. His birth father is black. He was adopted into a family of white parents, both white parents, at a very young age, because his mother had him, I think, when she was 18, somewhere in that ballpark. Very young, very young. And he's, had the college life. He went and got a college degree from Nevada. It's tough to see where he's coming from with his arguments here. Because generally, although his life started out very humbly, he in no way, shape, or form has technically been oppressed in his lifetime. Now, like I said earlier, you and I, no matter what color, race, creed, religion, whatever, can see and know that there are less fortunate people in this world, and there are problems that need to be solved in this country. We all know that. So how he picked this stance is and why he picked this stance is just confusing to me. It really is. I know the premise behind it. But he's also owed $11.9 million this year. And I'm not saying I agree with this particular meme, but I did see a meme on social media the other day that showed a reporter with Colin Kaepernick saying, so you want to stand against, racial inequality or racial favoritism. You want to stand against it by sitting for your national anthem. And he's like, yeah, sure, absolutely. Again, this is a meme. This is not coming out of his mouth, and this is not a real situation. The second picture, also, reporter asked, well, to stand for financial inequality, will you be unable to accept your paycheck to help those in need? I think that's a fair question. Yes, he is an elite player and deserves to be paid what he has earned and what he is worth. I don't think he's worth $12 million anymore as a player, but that's beside the point. He's practicing his First Amendment rights, just as we all do every day. And, of course, there's restrictions on those First Amendment rights. We can be handcuffed for stuff we say. You can be suspended or fired at will for anything you say. And the San Francisco 49ers just may do that to Colin Kaepernick and just eat that $12 million. Somebody would probably pick him up. But then Drew Brees went on to say, quarterback of the New Orleans Saints, that he is of the complete opposite spectrum and thinks that Colin Kaepernick should respect the country, respect the flag, respect the anthem, and do as every other player on the field is told to do. Now, granted, Drew Brees has been very active working with the military. He has family that has been in the military. So, it would be very obvious that he would take this stance. And he's also practicing his First Amendment right. So you have two opposite sides of the spectrum, but then you have the NFL. I did an article back during, I believe it was one of the first playoff series of the NBA playoffs, with the Miami Heat versus the Toronto Raptors. Dwayne Wade was continuing his shoot-around during the Canadian national anthem when they were playing in Toronto. He caught a lot of flack for that. And you know why? Because the NBA has a rule in their regulations for all players to stand for the national anthem. The NFL, on the other hand, has no such rule. Now, the question becomes, should the NFL take a patriotic stand and add a rule that requires all players to at least stand and give the basic respect, whether you agree with the premise or not, of the national anthem and of the flag that is stretched across most of that football field during said anthem? Or should the NFL continue to be politically correct and respect Colin Kaepernick's wishes and give all of its players its freedom to do as they please during the national anthem? I'm not going to touch that one. That one's up for interpretation. I know what I would do, but then I would catch flack, probably on knockdown_radio or knockdownsportsradio.com, for giving my opinion and my First Amendment rights. So, we're going to keep this one as level-headed as possible. So Colin Kaepernick, we'll see where his career trends from there. We'll see if the 49ers hold on to him as their very expensive backup, or say if a team like Minnesota, who just lost their starting quarterback, Teddy Bridgewater, to pretty much a dislocated knee and a fully torn ACL, horrific knee injury. He's out for the season, and that's a potential playoff team, especially with their defense. So we'll see if teams like that reach out to a Colin Kaepernick and want to take that $12 million on their salary cap and give him another chance. So, like I said, I don't know where Colin Kaepernick got all of his information from based on his background. I support him making a stand for a cause he believes in, but could he have done it in a different way that made it a little less obvious? Could he have done it off the field? Could he have done it charitably instead of publicly? Or could he have done it, on another premise? All those questions remain to be seen. But that's Colin Kaepernick and my 2 cents. And I hope you, whether you agree or disagree with that stance or lack thereof, in Kaepernick's case, to contact us at knockdown_radio. Tell us how you feel. Knockdown Sports Radio on Facebook, knockdownsportsradio.com, and go from there. A little more somber from me today. That was weird. That's odd for me to get slow and political. It really is. So, to speed things back up, we're going to talk from one quarterback to another, turning left fielder, Mr. Tim Tebow. Tim Tebow had a baseball tryout for the 27 of the 30 teams held at the University of Southern California's baseball complex yesterday. Excuse me. Like I said, 27 of the 30 teams were present. And these were not just regional scouts trying to show up and see how he did. This was, these were their main team scouts. He displayed some power. He did hit a home run. Several shots deep in the outfield, a couple off the wall. And of course, running is typically his forte, even though he's not the fastest, but he's quick. There's a difference there between quick and fast. And he ran a solid, I think it was a 6.7 second 60-yard dash time. Now, here are some criticisms before we get to actually some of the better numbers that he did. Some criticisms that all the scouts pretty much unanimously said about Tebow. Oddly enough, his outfield arm is not exemplary. The same exact criticism he had as a quarterback. That his arms are so huge, but yet have less power. And that was another comment that a lot of scouts had to say that I was reading on. That he is so built, so muscular, that his fielding and flexibility and mechanics just felt kind of stiff. Kind of just sort of, he was not real flexible and did not get the full potential of his body's movement. Now, with his arm criticism, he did take some fly balls and took some throws from right field, and those ended up coming up a bit short, so they say to make up for that he would have to play left field. Going to his power at the plate, like I said, he did hit one humdinger and hit several shots near or off the wall. He took, about 80 pitches or something like that from former MLB pitchers. He had a 64% swing percentage on those pitches, which that's a flexible stat either way. But he took 64% of swings at all the pitches he saw. And of those pitches that he swung at, he made contact 76% of the time. You think to yourself, that's pretty good. And yeah, it actually is. That would put him total 102nd in the Major League Baseball realm right now. 102nd in percentage of contact at swings taken. So, that's middle of the road, maybe even top third of Major League Baseball. As far as that contact percentage of pitches he swung at. Now, that's one thing he can utilize. I did watch the video. I watched part of the workout. His stance is good. His timing is okay. What he really struggled with were with pitches down in the zone, the knee height and below. And primarily breaking balls. He just looked a little bit confused at times at the breaking balls. And of course, he did not necessarily know what pitches were coming. This was designed to be, designed to be a true showcase of what he could do in a semi-simulated game. Now, what happens from here? Those 27 scouts go home to their general managers, their presidents of operations, Here's our scouting report on Tebow. He's got good power. He's an okay fielder. Some people described it as he used both hands with every single outfield catch that made him look like a little leaguer. Well, are you not supposed to use two hands when you catch? That's how I was taught. And I'm not necessarily in Tebow's corner here because, again, similar to Kaepernick, I think this is somewhat of a publicity stunt no matter what he says. But if I'm the scout, I go back and say, okay, what's our single A affiliate? What's their attendance right now? About 800? 800 per game? How many seats do we have? Okay, 2,000. So we're doing 40% sales right now. So if we sign Tebow, I can guarantee you 1,600 seats of those 2,000 seats sold every single night. That's why somebody would pick up Tim Tebow right now. Not based on his mechanics, not based on his power, even though slightly power. Definitely not his fielding right now. But I think somebody would pick him up as a somewhat of a publicity stunt and to give him somewhat of a fair shake in the realm of minor league baseball. Is he ever going to make the majors? Probably not. Slim to none would be the possibilities there, in my opinion. But in his interviews post-workout, he said, obviously this is not a publicity stunt because I've wanted to do one of two things my entire life. And that's be a quarterback and hit baseballs. The first thing didn't quite work out for him. At least not the way he wanted it to. So, he's going to option number 2 later in his career. He's like, why would I be here taking a pay cut for really what's going to be a definite pay cut, especially if he goes to the minors or low-level minors to start out with, when he can have endorsements and TV gigs that pay him just as much or more. That's a valid point. But I think somebody will pick him up. I really do. Somebody will pick him up, sell out their stadium for 4 months out of the year, and we'll see how it all shakes out at the end of next season. He'll get an invite to spring training. He'll get signed. And that is if he really wants to. If he sees greener pastures in the TV industry, where he can keep his name out there and collect a bigger paycheck for less work, I would not blame him for that either. Keep in mind that Tebow, his junior year of high school, which I think was his last year of organized baseball, was an all-state player and hit for over a 500 average with several home runs. Just going to leave that fact with you. Alright guys, that does it for the all-around sports portion of Knockdown Sports Radio today. We will be back momentarily right after these messages. Today's episode is brought to you in part by the good folks at 2H Brewing of Greensboro, North Carolina. My partner in crime, Cody Teague, the lovely Leslie Harris, and friend of the program, Phil Howard, are making tasty craft brews in the heart of downtown Greensboro. From classic tastes to out-of-bounds brews, 2H Brewing is trying them all. Give them a follow on Twitter at 2H Brewing for their updated beer list, and our thanks to them for sponsoring Knockdown Sports Radio. Check out the official KSR website at knockdownsportsradio.com. You can find all of our past episodes, social media accounts, articles, and even links to Amazon. If you shop at Amazon.com, get special deals by using the links on the KSR website and help out our podcast at the same time. You can even get a free month of Amazon Prime if you are a new subscriber. Check out knockdownsportsradio.com for all the details. Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to Knockdown Sports Radio. Again, my name is Chris. Thanks for hanging out with me. I love that little lick in our theme song there. Big thanks to Spreaker.com for being our host of this episode, or this podcast, I should say, the hosting site, allowing us to work with all those different lovely theme songs and technology that makes it easy for me to record by myself without a studio right here from my lovely home in the Randolph County, North Carolina area. So now that we've covered, the big main sports, let's go to what this podcast is usually about and what I hope to be more about in the very near future. And that is pro wrestling, sports entertainment, whatever you want to call it. A little over a week ago, we had WWE SummerSlam, the second WrestleMania, as I call it. Their second biggest pay-per-view of the year. And I had all these big intentions of covering SummerSlam, NXT TakeOver Brooklyn. Unfortunately, none of which panned out. As I said earlier in the show, life gets in the way sometimes, and that's quite all right. But we had SummerSlam a little over a week ago, and what I thought was a very disappointing pay-per-view, at least when it comes to the booking. You had this card that had some really, really good matches, some first-time matches, some good championship matches, and really only one of which met my expectations or exceeded it, and one of which left people talking. The first match that I thought really exceeded expectations and was probably the match of the night, absolutely was match of the night, I don't know why I said maybe, was John Cena versus AJ Styles. And if you followed John Cena throughout the years, your main criticism of him would be his work rate, right? Kinda, sorta, maybe. That he would not be able to keep up with AJ Styles in the ring. No such luck on your opinion there, ladies and gentlemen. John Cena put on a heck of a show, and AJ Styles did not carry him whatsoever. AJ Styles with quite possibly his best performance since signing with the WWE in January and debuting at the Royal Rumble. So if you would have told me back in January that AJ Styles is going to pin John Cena clean with no help whatsoever by the end of August, I would have told you were absolutely crazy. But guess what? He did. And the crowd absolutely loved it. And what made it bad? This match was right smack dab in the middle of the main card, and the crowd never recovered from the excitement of that match. The crowd was dead. They had nothing left to give after that match. If that's the way you were going to book that match, it should have been the co-main or the absolute main event, one way or another. And then people would have complained, oh, John Cena's in the main event, it's not even for a title. So what? If that's going to be the best match on the card by design, you need to leave them with something to talk about, which they did. But great match by Cena and Styles at SummerSlam. Which leads me to the last match of the evening, which was Randy Orton versus Brock Lesnar. Brock Lesnar is technically a draw, right? Technically. He brings in money. Technically. Dean Ambrose was on the Stone Cold podcast, although it was a very weird interview. But one of the biggest things that got taken out of that podcast was he essentially called Brock Lesnar lazy for not wanting to do anything, quote, artistically creative at WrestleMania. He wanted to go, do his suplexes, get a pin, and leave. I can believe that. Lesnar's getting paid to do a job. He's not in love with this business like 90% of the other performers are. He does it for the fat paycheck. So that is what you got in his WrestleMania match with Dean Ambrose, is you got suplexes, a couple of F5s, and done. And, we all thought maybe Dean Ambrose lost a step. I just think Dean Ambrose looked unmotivated. Now that he says that, I now understand what he was coming from. But on this match at SummerSlam, typical match, Brock taking Randy to Suplex City. Randy hits an RKO out of nowhere onto the table, the announce table, which doesn't really give. Brock takes exception, obviously, and then carelessly throws Randy Orton into the announce table with pretty much reckless abandon. He's not safe to work with. Case in point, after they get back in the ring, it turns into what they were hoping would be a shoot fight, or a real fight, as Brock Lesnar went straight elbows to Randy Orton's forehead. Orton got busted open and was literally in a pool of his own blood. That was not a blade job. That was real. The gash was, I would venture to say, 3 inches wide. That was a straight, hard elbow. And this caused a lot of controversy, not just with the WWE Universe, the fans, or whatever the case may be, but it also it was controversial with the guys backstage. Chris Jericho, locker room leader, came out to the gorilla position right behind the curtain and asked Michael P.S. Hayes, one of the producers and WWE Hall of Famer, was that a work or was that a shoot? And P.S. Hayes has had nothing to say. He would not reveal whether he knew or not what it was. And that caused Chris Jericho to go off. And wouldn't you know it, here comes Brock Lesnar through the curtain after his match, and the two have a standoff. Brock Lesnar calls Jericho a couple of cutesy names that I'm not going to say on the air. But Jericho showed his locker room leadership by going out there and protecting Orton, protecting the rest of the guys, and at least somewhat attempting to prevent Brock Lesnar from going into business for himself, so to speak. So that was your really two biggest SummerSlam matches. Another title change happened with the women's championship. Charlotte defeated Sasha Banks. Charlotte, who also very careless in this match, dropped Sasha Banks. I don't know if it was meant to be a back body drop, or not a back body drop, but just like a side slam onto the top turnbuckle. But it was absolutely dangerous. Sasha was inches away from darn near being paralyzed, I would assume. And then Charlotte, again, looked nervous and had another smaller botch a little bit after that. But they recovered from those two things and had a good emotional match. Charlotte ended up winning, which made Sasha's title reign right around a month, or not even that. But apparently Sasha is going to take some time off to nurse some injuries. But to me, you could have played something there within that women's division, could have elevated somebody else up for Charlotte to work with to alleviate having Sasha drop the title. But I digress. The other big event of the weekend was the NXT show, the NXT TakeOver Brooklyn 2, or Back to Brooklyn. They had about 14 different titles for this, so just sort of have to pick one. If you haven't seen this on the WWE Network, do yourself a favor. Spend that $9.99 and watch NXT TakeOver. Heck, go back and watch all of the NXT TakeOvers, because they're going to surpass any of the main roster shows, whether that be WrestleMania, SummerSlam, or however. They're going to surpass the main roster show. They just are. From a wrestling standpoint, from a simplicity standpoint, from a booking standpoint, the decision making, all of that, much better. The major matches here, what I thought the match of the night was, honestly, was the Tag Team Championship match with the Revival versus Johnny Gargano and Tommaso Ciampa. Both of which were in the Cruiserweight Classic, and also now going to be on the Cruiserweight division on Raw. What a wonderful match this was. This puts you in all of the feels, as they say these days. It gave you all the feels as a wrestling fan. I was on the edge of my seat for all the near falls. I was feeling bad for Gargano and Ciampa. Revival capitalized on a ton of old school heat, not cheap heat, not ridiculous nonsensical heat that they use today, but old school heat. Both of these tag teams work really well together. Revival, probably one of the best technical work rate type of tag teams out there. Not just in WWE or NXT, but anywhere. Average looking fellas, they called themselves the Mechanics before they ended up with the Revival, which is a great name for their style. But Bayley also lost her second chance versus Asuka. She did not get her second title reign as the NXT Women's Champion, but good for her. On Monday, she got called up to be on Monday Night Raw. And I'm very excited for Bayley. She could be the female John Cena if they play their cards right. As far as merch, kids loving her, even adults loving her. And then the NXT Championship match, we now have a new NXT champion. Shinsuke Nakamura defeated Samoa Joe in a very good, stiff, Japanese, slower style match, which the crowd didn't really know what to do with at first. They got into it toward the end. But your new NXT champion, Shinsuke Nakamura, and as you'll find out on KnockdownSportsRadio.com, I did a little column about NXT being a truly global brand. Your two major champions now in NXT are of Japanese descent and speak broken English at absolute best. So, yes, you have to be able to talk, but if you're charismatic and emotional enough to not have to talk and still sell out arenas, you're doing pretty well for yourself. A couple of quick notes from the past week in in WWE television. Monday Night Raw, with Finn Balor's injury, who was the first Universal Champion crowned at SummerSlam. He had to relinquish that title, and there was a tournament to declare a Fatal 4-Way for the new Universal Championship. Those four were Big Cass, Seth Rollins, Roman Reigns, and your new WWE Universal Champion, Kevin Owens. That's right, Kevin Owens. And I'm happy to see it. Now, how it went down was interesting. Big Cass got eliminated first, but they showcased him very, very well. Great first outing on what I would declare his biggest stage thus far. That's beside the point. Well done, Big Cass. Glad they put you there. Sorry to see Enzo wasn't out there with you, or this is probably going to split them up sooner than later. But good job to Big Cass. Triple H comes out, unwarranted, uninvited. First time we've seen him since WrestleMania. And comes out and gives a pedigree to Roman Reigns. Alright, perfect. He's going to help Seth Rollins win the title. It's going to be recycled nonsense over again. No. But wait, there's more, as they say on the infomercials. Triple H pedigrees Seth Rollins in the middle of the ring and tells Kevin Owens to cover him. Kevin Owens did a wonderful job of looking shocked and ended up getting that pin for the 1, 2, and 3, and he looks like Kevin Owens is the new Triple H guy. And we'll see how the fallout happens in the next few weeks. But this opens up a lot of things. It could lead to a Seth Rollins face turn, which I think he could do really well at. He was a face in NXT as he was the first NXT champion, and did a great job with it. Another quick note before we head off the air today was a segment that wasn't even on the USA Network or TV. It was on the network, WWE Network, that is. And that's on Talking Smack last Tuesday, where Miz and Daniel Bryan had a promo for the ages. Daniel Bryan essentially called The Miz soft and a coward as far as his style of wrestling. And Miz countered that he's never been injured like Bryan, that he comes in there day in and day out, and that Daniel Bryan should go back to the bingo halls and quit WWE if he wants to wrestle again without WWE doctor clearance. This led to Bryan storming out of the room and Miz continuing that passionate promo. Now, you would think that this sets up a nice, beautiful thing for them to follow up on, right? Okay, they started off well. They played the whole entire segment on this week's SmackDown so the TV audience could see. And then they kind of dropped it from there. And on Talking Smack last night, they pretty much said, outspokenly, that Miz and Daniel Bryan are never to be in a segment again, and that Daniel Bryan does not need to provoke talent on Talking Smack. Well, goodness, that was the most entertaining part. Daniel Bryan being a troll to the company, to their own business, I thought was the most entertaining part. So we'll see how the format of Talking Smack rolls out in the next few weeks. And if there's any true follow-up to the Miz Daniel Bryan segment, which I think, honestly, was probably some of the best WWE television I've seen in quite some time. But that wraps us up for this week, guys. Thanks so much for joining us. I want to remind everybody to find us on social media at knockdown_radio on Twitter, Knockdown Sports Radio on Facebook, and of course our brand new website, knockdownsportsradio.com, in which you can click the Amazon links and do your shopping through our links, get special deals, and help us out at the same time. Again, my name is Chris Calicut. Thanks so much for joining me today. We will see you next time on Knockdown Sports Radio. See you then.